Charles Babbage, KHFRS, was an English polymath, a mathematician, philosopher, inventor and mechanical engineer. Babbage is best remembered for originating the concept of a programmable computer. Considered by some to be a father of the computer, Babbage is credited with inventing the first mechanical computer that eventually led to more complex designs. His varied work in other fields has led him to be described as preeminent among the many polymaths of his century. John Tucker, professor of computer science at Swansea University, however, argues that it was the Welsh mathematician Robert Recorder who first laid down the foundations of these concepts. Parts of Babbage's uncompleted mechanisms are on display in the London Science Museum. In 1991, a perfectly functioning difference engine was constructed from Babbage's original plans. Built to tolerances achievable in the 19th century, the success of the finished engine indicated that Babbage's machine would have worked. Early life. Babbage's birthplace is disputed, but according to the Oxford Dictionary of National Biography he was most likely born at 44 Crosby Row, Walworth Road, London, England. A blue plaque on the junction of Larkham Street and Walworth Road commemorates the event. His date of birth was given in his obituary in the Times as the 26th of December 1792, but then a nephew wrote to say that Babbage was born 1 year earlier. In 1791, the parish register of St. Mary's, Newington, London, shows that Babbage was baptised on 6 January 1792, supporting a birth year of 1791. Babbage was one of the 4 children of Benjamin Babbage and Betsy Plumley Teep. His father was a banking partner of William Praed founding Praed's & Co. of Fleet Street, London, in 1801. In 1808, the Babbage family moved into the old Rodens house in East Teignbridge. Around the age of 8, Babbage was sent to a country school in Alphington near Exeter to recover from a life-threatening fever. For a short time he attended King Edward VI Grammar School in Totnes, South Devon, but his health forced him back to private tutors for a time. Babbage then joined the 30-student Holmwood Academy, in Baker Street, Enfield, Middlesex, under the Reverend Stephen Freeman. The academy had a library that prompted Babbage's love of mathematics. He studied with 2 more private tutors after leaving the academy. The first was a clergyman near Cambridge. Through him Babbage encountered Charles Simeon and his evangelical followers. But the tuition was not what he needed. He was brought home to study at the Totnes school. This was at age 16 or 17. The second was an Oxford tutor, under whom Babbage reached a level in classics sufficient to be accepted by Cambridge. At the University of Cambridge, Babbage arrived at Trinity College, Cambridge, in October 1810. He was already self-taught in some parts of contemporary mathematics. He had read in Robert Woodhouse, Joseph Louis Lagrange, and Marie Agnesi. As a result, he was disappointed in the standard mathematical instruction available at Cambridge. Babbage, John Herschel, George Peacock, and several other friends formed the Analytical Society in 1812. They were also close to Edward Ryan. As a student, Babbage was also a member of other societies, such as the Ghost Club, concerned with investigating supernatural phenomena, and the Extractors Club, dedicated to liberating its members from the madhouse, should any be committed to one. In 1812, Babbage transferred to Peterhouse, Cambridge. He was the top mathematician there, but did not graduate with honours. He instead received a degree without examination in 1814. He had defended a thesis that was considered blasphemous in the preliminary public disputation, but it is not known whether this fact is related to his not sitting the examination. After Cambridge, considering only his reputation, Babbage quickly made progress. He lectured to the Royal Institution on Astronomy in 1815, and was elected a Fellow of the Royal Society in 1816. After graduation, on the other hand, he applied for positions unsuccessfully, and had little in the way of career. In 1816 he was a candidate for a teaching job at Haileybury College. He had recommendations from James Ivory and John Playfair, but lost out to Henry Walter. In 1819, Babbage and Herschel visited Paris and the Society of Arcueil, meeting leading French mathematicians and physicists. That year Babbage applied to be professor at the University of Edinburgh. With the recommendation of Pierre Simon Laplace, the post went to William Wallace. With Herschel, Babbage worked on the electrodynamics of Arago's rotations, publishing in 1825. Their explanations were only transitional, being picked up and broadened by Michael Faraday. The phenomena are now part of the theory of eddy currents, and Babbage and Herschel missed some of the clues to unification of electromagnetic theory, staying close to Ampere's force law. Babbage purchased the actuarial tables of George Barrett, who died in 1821 leaving unpublished work, and surveyed the field in 1826 in comparative view of the various institutions for the assurance of lives. This interest followed a project to set up an insurance company, prompted by Francis Bailey and mooted in 1824, but not carried out. Babbage did calculate actuarial tables for that scheme, using Equitable Society mortality data from 1762 onwards. During this whole period Babbage depended awkwardly on his father's support, given his father's attitude to his early marriage, of 1814. He and Edward Ryan wedded the Whitmore sisters. He made a home in Marylebone in London, and founded a large family. On his father's death in 1827, Babbage inherited a large estate, making him independently wealthy. After his wife's death in the same year he spent time travelling. In Italy he met Leopold II, Grand Duke of Tuscany, foreshadowing a later visit to Piedmont. In April 1828 he was in Rome, and relying on Herschel to manage the difference engine project. When he heard that he had become professor at Cambridge, a position he had 3 times failed to obtain, Astronomical Society, Babbage was instrumental in founding the Astronomical Society in 1820. Its initial aims were to reduce astronomical calculations to a more standard form, and to circulate data. These directions were closely connected with Babbage's ideas on computation, and in 1824 he won its gold medal, cited for his invention of an engine for calculating mathematical and astronomical tables. Babbage's motivation to overcome errors in tables by mechanization has been a commonplace since Dionysius Lardner wrote about it in 1834 in the Edinburgh Review. The context of these developments is still debated. Babbage's own account of the origin of the difference engine begins with the Astronomical Society's wish to improve the nautical almanac. Babbage and Herschel were asked to oversee a trial project, to recalculate some part of those tables. With the result to hand, discrepancies were found. This was in 1821 or 1822, and was the occasion on which Babbage formulated his idea for mechanical computation. The issue of the nautical almanac is now described as a legacy of a polarization in British science caused by attitudes to Sir Joseph Banks, who had died in 1820. Babbage studied the requirements to establish a modern postal system, with his friend Thomas Frederick Colby, concluding there should be a uniform rate that was put into effect with the introduction of the uniform 4-penny post supplanted by the uniform penny post in 1839 and 1840. Colby was another of the founding group of the Society. He was also in charge of the Survey of Ireland. Herschel and Babbage were present at a celebrated operation of that survey, the remeasuring of the Lockfoyle baseline. British Lagrangian school. The Analytical Society had initially been no more than an undergraduate provocation. During this period it had some more substantial achievements. In 1816, Babbage, Herschel and Peacock published a translation from French of the Lectures of Sylvester Lacroix, which was then the state-of-the-art calculus textbook. Reference to Lagrange in calculus terms marks out the application of what are now called formal power series. British mathematicians had used them from about 1730 to 1760. As reintroduced, they were not simply applied as notations in differential calculus. They opened up the fields of functional equations and operator methods for differential equations. The analogy of difference and differential equations was notationally changing delta to d, as of finite difference becomes infinitesimal. These symbolic directions became popular as operational calculus, and pushed to the point of diminishing returns. The Cauchy concept of limit was kept at bay. Woodhouse had already founded this second, British Lagrangian school, with its treatment of Taylor series as formal. In this context, function composition is complicated to express, because the chain rule is not simply applied to second and higher derivatives. This matter was known to Woodhouse by 1803, who took from Louis-François-Antoine Arbogast what is now called Faa di Bruno's formula. In essence, it was known to Abraham de Moivre. Herschel found the method impressive, Babbage knew of it, and it was later noted by Ada Lovelace as compatible with the analytical engine. In the period to 1820, Babbage worked intensively on functional equations in general, and resisted both conventional finite differences and Arbogast's approach. But via Herschel he was influenced by Arbogast's ideas in the matter of iteration, i.e., composing a function with itself, possibly many times. Writing in a major paper on functional equations in the Philosophical Transactions, Babbage said his starting point was work of Gaspard Monge.